before we get to the serious heavy-duty stuff, although it's serious to some. Red Sox rained out last night. We have the doubleheader this afternoon, and J-Dog and I were just talking before the break, and Red Sox would need to win the first of that two-game set today, and if they do, it's number 15, and that would be a franchise record for the Red Sox. Will they do that, yes or no? What say you, J-Dog?
No.
He's a no. That's what you want. No, I'm kidding. J-Dog, do you want to grab the poll results from yesterday or wait on those?
No, let's get them right now.
Okay, take it away, J-Dog.
Nearly 6 months in, will the U.S. conflict with Iran end soon? 100% no.
Wow, it's a second. We've only had about 100% responses in our R&D paving poll, and that's another one. Wow, and we had John Decker, our own White House correspondent, on yesterday, and I asked him point blank, do you think the escalation and the renewed war, if you will, the ongoing war with Iran will be over by Labor Day of this fall? And he said, sadly, no. And he said the bad guys don't want it to end. John Decker's words, the bad guys don't want it to end. There's no incentive. They want to hurt President Trump and his Republican Party in the midterms, stretch it out and have prices go up here and the economy become an issue here to hurt the United States politically. All right. We have a lot coming up this morning. We're going to hear from the VA. We're going to get an update on some health care from our friends on the surgical side, one of our great sponsors, New Hampshire Orthopedic, and we're going to be coming back to that. But first, we're going to go to Tim Hafner. Now, Tim, you heard me talk about him yesterday. He's a retired fighter pilot. He lives here over in Durham, New Hampshire. And early on in the war, the war with and in Iran, he was a local military expert for us who painted a picture. And I don't think he needs to be told or patted on the back, but his picture was spot on. And that was back, I think, in April or March. Certainly March. It was March or April before May. And he said he's basically, Tim, good morning. Thanks for being back on Good Morning New Hampshire, the Pulse of an H. How are you?
Good morning, Jack. I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, good. You were on with us a lot, and I'm not trying to patronize you, but I think your analysis was better than any of the national retired military experts, including those with maybe some stars on the shoulder. You've done a phenomenal job with us here in New Hampshire, and you were a fighter pilot for a number of years before becoming a commercial pilot. And everything you said back in the spring, as we get closer to 6 months, was true. You said you'd never, correct me if I'm wrong, you said, Jack, I've not really seen a war that was won in a few weeks. Ultimately, you probably have to put some boots in the ground, regrettably, to verify. And it's probably going to be longer than people think or want. And you were right on all those fronts, Tim.
Yeah. I've been trying to come up with a picture to help people understand, because you think, why are the Iranians still shooting back when they've been hit so hard? So here's the word picture I came up with. Imagine they told you needed to find all of the drone pilots in New Hampshire, but you could only do it with airplanes.
Yeah.
That's kind of the problem they're trying to solve, because the Iranians, I mean, they know they can't go toe-to-toe with the U.S. militarily, so they've got to come up with an asymmetric way to do this. And they've been, for quite a while, they've been looking at U.S. capabilities going, how do we do this in a way that makes it much harder for the superior technology and numbers and all the rest of that? How do we counter that? And I think that's what they did, is they dispersed so much of their stuff and they hid so much of their stuff that finding something from, I don't know what altitude they're using at this point, but 20,000 feet.
Yeah.
Finding a guy in a pickup truck.
It's kind of and you've been up there trying to find those targets. It's talk about a needle in a haystack. Tim, you had said earlier that the Islamic State, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard and the leaders of Iran knew that eventually a president would have the you-know-what to hit them. And so you said they studied us, which is what enemies do. They study your enemy. They decentralized and they dug down and scattered stuff. You had said that. That's pretty much the picture you're still painting.
Yeah. I think what we're seeing is they did a pretty good job of it, because they're still hitting boats in the Gulf, and they're still firing ballistic missiles. And, I think they mobilized and hid a lot of stuff
for many years.
Makes it so hard to find. Yeah.
Probably for many years. So what do we do now, Tim? Not that you're the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, but what do we do now to end this thing? And John Decker, our White House correspondent, said yesterday live on my show, they don't want to end it, the bad guys. So we're in a pickle here. How do we end this? Short of, you know what, or putting troops on the ground and going door to door. How do we end it?
Gosh, you're asking a fighter pilot to talk about strategic decisions. Like, I was on the pointy end of the spear, not the shaft of the spear.
Yeah.
But man, is it one of those things where you go in and you pound pickaxe to kind of delay whatever's going on there, and then just like call victory and monitor? And every time that you see them do something you don't like, just go in and hit it again. The other thing is you get all those Gulf states that have got a lot of military capability, and I don't see them participating.
No, I don't see them. I don't see them hitting them.
Yeah, I think my understanding is if you add up everything they've got, that's about 600 combat aircraft.
Why isn't Saudi Arabia or some other country? Why aren't they hitting them?
Politics. Is it a Muslim West kind of thing? Is it? Yeah, I mean, obviously it's politics because your military is a political tool. That's all it is.
Iran's given them an invitation by hitting them. The Gulf states, they're hitting them. I wonder. One thing I said back in the spring after having you on, painting this picture, and I didn't like it. I didn't have a good feeling. I didn't think it would be quick. I think the president might have been talked into this, but what do I know? His decision. He won't be the first president, Tim, who saw something that kind of looked easy. But let me ask you this. It comes back to the Iranian thing. Every time President Trump is pushed on this, he says they're just not going to have a nuclear bomb. Okay. And I don't disagree with that.
Yep.
But between Israel and us and Mossad and our intelligence, we got to have some idea where the bulk of that nuclear capability or uranium is, whether it's in the mountains that we hit before. We got to know we got to have some degree of where it is. I'm guessing our intelligence. Do you think that's correct?
I would agree with that.
Why don't we just go secure it?
Oh, I mean,
why don't we just send 5,000 Marines and secure it and call it a day?
So yeah, and I know we had talked about this before, but think about, we've already hit those sites. So access to all of that stuff, that's excavation. That's not walking down a tunnel and bagging it up.
No, but I mean, if it's in one part of the country, we have pretty good airborne, and if they're scattered and we want to put the guys like you up in the air to protect them, we get some guys on the ground and 82nd Airborne Marines, we secure that area and we just tell the Iranians, you're never going to touch us. We're going to stay here for a while, and you don't like it, we don't care. And that's what we wanted you to do it, but we're going to do it.
Yeah, and I think boots on the ground, it's not, what's happening now isn't popular. You put boots on the ground, and then what happens when they take all of their ballistic stuff that they're shooting out of the country and start aiming it at the troops that are there surrounding the site?
Well, that's why you've been in the box, not me, in the fighter box. I think the other thing too, I think the plan is, because I'm reading more jets. By the way, you live near, as do I, near Pease and the Air National Guard. I've been reading more refuelers are being redeployed to the Middle East. Are our folks still here because they were sent home, or have you seen activity that they're headed over again?
So my understanding is that they're deployed on paper, but the airplanes are still sitting on the ramp.
Okay.
Which sounds to me like they're basically on call.
Right.
But my understanding is all of the tankers are on the ground here at Pease right now.
Okay.
And then was a little surprising to me, but
yeah,
I'm not in the planning center,
But I'm reading we're sending more fighter jets to the Middle East, including some of those bigger. What are they? The B-1 bomber? Is that it?
The Bone, yeah. That's I hadn't read that, but that just tells me that I don't know. Is that posturing, or are we actually going to ramp up with what we're hitting? I don't know the answer to that.
I think it's the latter. I think there's no choice. And I think, what's that air base in Great Britain? I read that been a couple of, they've seen. It just seems to me that we're going to pound them again. And then even though it may just be lip service, might get back to a ceasefire just to take pressure off this and see if the Strait of Hormuz can't settle down. I don't know if there's any way to, as you said, to get every little drone or missile that's scattered across Iran. And the problem is, if we do the old infrastructure thing, the power plants, the bridges, we're affecting, 90 million people, and you got a humanitarian crisis that they'll blame us on.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know, there's zero evidence that they would honor a ceasefire based on the history of what's happened so far. I just don't think that's realistic in any way because
No.
they just won't honor it.
Yeah. All right, Tim.
They're focused on the midterms.
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
Thank you. Thank you. I said this yesterday. John Decker said it there. Folks, just to, how cunning this Islamic State is. They are not, as I said yesterday in some commentary, they're terrorists. They're not idiots. They study us. They know when our midterms are. And if they can hurt our economy by prices going up and anger our voters to turn against President Trump in the midterms, even though he's not directly on the ballot, indirectly the Republicans are running for federal office, they'll feel like, they're getting back.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Listen, we appreciate it. Thank you, Tim. You're the best. Be well. You're the best. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jack. Have a great day.
All right. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa. Fascinating stuff. Tim Hafner, a retired fighter pilot right here in New Hampshire. He just making some news that our refueling wing, Air National Guard, our refuelers, with the modern KC, whatever they're called. Please forgive me. I don't know the 40, whatever. They're wonderful modern refuelers. We have the best of the best right at Pease and the Air National, the refueling wing right there at Pease International Trade Port and the airport. Commercial flights fly, but you'll see the Air Guard folks and their planes out there. He says they're deployed on paper, but they're still on the runway, and they were vital and critical when we ramped up when this whole Operation Epic Fury began. We're going to come back. We got a packed show for you this morning. Hey Google, hey Alexa, play the Pulse of NH. Back in a moment.
Register now for the Pulse of New Hampshire.
Live from the New England College Studios. Now back to Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
All right, J-Dog, what time does the Red Sox doubleheader get underway?
12:35 pregame, so the Rob Carson show will be super abbreviated at 12:35, and then the regular 6:10 pregame, 7:10 for the second scheduled game. At 12:35 pregame, 1:35 first pitch.
Hi, Rob Carson here with Newsmax. All right, here we go. Now we're going to go to the Red Sox. All right,
Pretty
good luck.
much.
Good luck. Hopefully they get the 15th. It's a great, fun thing to watch. Good summer story. There were some primaries last night. We're going to hear from one of our contributors. I think Paul Steinhauser may join us at the top of the 10 o'clock. But I want to take a moment because I'm noticing I don't know about you, but just as a distraction, let me see if he can do now because he's got a problem here. Sorry, J-Dog. Can you do now? That's Steiny. He's checking in. So we'll probably
I'll let
take
you
him.
know.
He'd probably take him earlier because he's got a Zoom, not Zumba. You ever notice, or is it just me? I got to just comment on this for a little bit of a lighter note. People may forget. I don't remember the hantavirus that struck that cruise ship. And then the passengers being offloaded, and it did claim a few lives from people who were closest to it on the ship, and the hantavirus from mice and rats. The hantavirus. I remember traveling the first week of June this summer, flying out of Pease. By the way, thank you, Renee Plummer, the KC-46A. I think the refuelers, they're still on the ground here. One wonderful group of crew. Really, it's an incredible crew, our refueling mission of the Air National Guard there. But I flew out of Pease on Allegiant, taking a few days the first week of June. And I'm just like a naturally inquisitive, I guess always a kind of a reporter kind of personality. And I noticed, and I don't care. You do you, I'll do me. You do you, I'll do me, respectfully. You do you, I'll do me. But I noticed about, 15 people on the flight, and they weren't older people. They didn't look sick. In fact, a lot were younger people wearing masks. He'll go, here we go again. Was there some virus I'm not aware of? And I wasn't connecting the dots that people flying out of Pease in Portsmouth, New Hampshire in June were afraid of the mice and the rat, the hantavirus. Okay, Fear. So Cape Fear, I guess, is a new version of that. So Cape Fear, we got. I don't hear much about the hantavirus right now. Hantavirus, I guess it's called. So then we move into this parasite. I haven't talked much about, the produce parasite stomach illness, and it struck, and I guess Michigan was a real battle zone. And so we're told about this virus, this parasite outbreak on produce and lettuce, and it causes all these things, and with the stomach and digest, you don't want it. Of course, I don't want any of this stuff. Do you? So we get, kind of afraid of that. My brother and sister-in-law in the last week or two were traveling in Michigan. I said, "Oh, you're brave. You're right in the bullseye of the parasitic outbreak." Anyway, so we go through, and that seems to be a little bit waning. Is that Paul? And then someone tells me this morning about the Costa Rica mosquito. I don't know where the killer hornets are, and there's a hurricane about to hit Louisiana. But you notice how we're just meant to be afraid of something like every month? Be afraid of something every month. Live in fear. Some commentary. Is that Paul? I think it is. Paul Steinhauser on Fox. He's going early with us because he's a busy person. He's going to do a Zoom, Paul. I'm kidding. Paul Steinhauser reports nationally for Fox. Some interesting primary results going into this morning, Paul.
Hey, good morning, Jack. Yeah, Arizona was the big state last night that was voting, and it was a test. We talked about this. This was a test once again for Donald Trump with his immense clout over the GOP and the power of his endorsements, and he passed that test easily. All the candidates that he was endorsing in the governor's nomination race and in congressional races won. In the governor's race, this is setting up a doozy. Congressman Andy Biggs, he's one of the top Trump supporters in the U.S. House. He easily won that primary, and now he'll face off against Democrat governor, the incumbent there, Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs. This is going to be one of the biggest, most expensive, closest gubernatorial battles in 2026 in the midterm. So keep your eyes on Arizona, Jack.
Interesting. And again, we're seeing the push on the socialist or the Democrats. I have the socialist running, but really President Trump continuing to flex control on the Republican Party in a lot of these. Correct?
Absolutely. He's had a few setbacks, of not many, a couple of small setbacks. He'll get tested again in 2 weeks in Michigan in that nomination race for governor out there as well. But yeah, overall, he's got a pretty darn good track record among Republicans, Jack, for sure.
All right, Paul. Thank you for getting us in. I know you got a busy morning with time. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Jack. Always great to talk with you.
Thank you, buddy. I want to get back to this fear thing. You know, how we're kind of put into this box of living in fear. You know, except for the killer hornets. I don't know if they're coming over, but we got this. Latest one is out of Costa Rica, CDC issuing a travel warning because there have been 40 cases of this mosquito-borne, fever, stiffness of joints, from the mosquitoes in Costa Rica. And I'm not going there, but as far as the parasitic or the produce outbreak, I was talking to someone this morning before the show, and what we're being told is to cook your lettuce. Cook your lettuce if you're going to have iceberg lettuce. Cook your lettuce to 159 degrees. Cook your lettuce. I gotta be honest, okay? I can live for a little bit without lettuce. They also tell you there's very little nutritional value in lettuce. So, but anyway, your produce. But I do like lettuce. I do like a crisp lettuce that's cold, not 159 degrees cooked. Maybe I could put it in the dishwasher overnight, the lettuce, and maybe it would be clean. But I like it crispy with some, what do you call it, J-Dog? What's that? I don't know if it's feta crumbled cheese on it with some balsamic vinaigrette. Maybe some tomatoes, which I always wash. But I've been washing everything. It's just me. But they say it's not good enough to wash. You gotta boil it. You gotta cook it, and then what? I mean, I might as well have green beans at that point, or asparagus or something. I don't know. But now there's a hurricane about to hit Louisiana, which is not unheard of. But it's just with when the hantavirus kind of struck around, and then this parasite outbreak on produce. Costa Rica now, the CDC saying if you're flying to that part of the world, we got a problem with these bad mosquitoes, waiting for the killer hornets. But it's always something to make us afraid. And you wonder why some people just check out to a hunting or fishing cabin and go out in the lake and enjoy breathing without all this noise. Some commentary, 603-228-2080. We'll check in. John Decker, our own White House correspondent, may or may not be joining us in a moment. His voice is back. He texted me early this morning. And very interesting, we just had Tim Hafner, retired fighter pilot, and John said this yesterday, our own White House correspondent, who is a great umpire of news covering the White House. He's been doing it for decades. He calls balls and strikes right down the middle. No gamesmanship, right down the middle. And he said yesterday when I asked him point blank, is this war with Iran going to end soon? He said, no. They want to string it out to our midterm elections right to the fall because they know, the Islamic State of Iran knows there's no incentive, he said, for them to end this. The longer this goes, the better it is for them because they can disrupt the Strait of Hormuz, cause oil and gas and diesel to go up. Americans get ticked off. Prices go up. They take it out on the people in office, in the White House, and in Congress. And guess who that is? Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the Pulse of an H. Jackie J-Dog on the boards. We are back in a moment.
107.7 Studios. Now back to Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
I'm going to get a great update coming up from the VA. And then also the 10 o'clock hour, Lieutenant Colonel Anna McKenna with Easter SEALs and the Franklin Military Campus will be joining us in the studio with an update there. And they're going to be kicking off phase 2 August 4th, and we'll be there live that morning. And then a little bit later on, we're going to hear about robotics in surgery right here in the Granite State, one of our sponsors and partners doing the robotic surgery. So it's pretty cool stuff happening out there, and we like to bring that to you. It is interesting that commentary is just having on how there's always something out there trying to scare us through and I don't know, how this is orchestrated, because as a media person, I understand how news is created and manufactured in terms of what winds up being news. I was always fascinated by this discussion because when I was in the TV news business and winding up as kind of a reluctant news director, because they kind of said, we need someone to run WMUR's news. And I guess, that's what I did for a number of years. And look back, it's a blur to me now, but it was, a lot going on. It's pretty frenetic and at times fun. But I remember people would say, how do you decide what the news is? I said, well, I don't. We have a pretty good crew. The likes of people like Jennifer Crompton and Karen Appel or Karen Brown later in life. And I, it was a good group. We had a good group. And it was, we'd sit around and I tried to explain to people that, these things are not as black and white as you think. News is very subjective. And I used to say to friends, it's not like there's a big book on your desk and you turn to page 157 to see what to lead the newscast with and what the second story is or the third story. This is television news, but it's all the same. Or what the headline is that the anchors read when they say, it's like I said yesterday as an example, I don't think ABC or CBS or CNN or any of them last night were going to lead the newscast with saying the war in Iran is not likely to end soon. The bad guys don't want it to end, and they're trying to string this out to the midterm elections to hurt President Trump and the Republican Party by hurting the economy here at home. Here now is our Washington correspondent, so and so and so and so. You're not going to see or hear that news story. It doesn't fit the narrative. But I used to say in the news business to friends when I was running WMUR, I'd say, I am not as journalistically bright as some of the people in the newsroom because they went to journalism schools. And, dumb me. I went to the University of Vermont, had some fun, played, loved some sport, just had a good time, joined a fraternity up there and, political science / economics. Never took a media journalism course in college, did a little bit after, but I wound up in it and learned it. Loved it. Still doing this show. Didn't really go to college and learn how to do a radio show or be a news person. Just fell into it, right? I mean, truthfully, sometimes people aim and things make sense. I guess I don't make much sense. But my point is, I used to say to people that, listen, here I am, the leader, the boss, but I used to, dumb me, I used to go to the bus stop in the morning or afternoon when my kids were departing or coming home from school, and I just listen. And there'd always be about 12 to 14 parents, moms and dads, or grandparents visiting or babysitting, and I would just listen. I would just listen. If I went home in the afternoon or in the morning before I'd go to the news meeting, I'd just listen what they were talking about. Were they talking about the economy? Were they talking about a snowstorm coming in? Were they talking about something international? A lot of the discussion was about health. It was about health. And a lot of the women in particular were talking about things like, better food for their kids and health. And I'd go into the newsroom and I'd say to the team, we should do more health news. And they'd look at me like, what? Yeah, we should do more health reports. And that led to us starting the news earlier in the afternoon to get a jump on the day. So we started the news earlier than 6 p.m. and, just kind of, and then I noticed this was a fun thing. I don't know if you remember Amanda Ober. She's still on the air in Florida right here. But we at WMUR had the new station at the time, and we had a cooking kitchen area, and we had presidential candidates coming through. Presidential candidates, our first in the nation presidential primary. And I don't know what cycle that was, but, you know, you had national names coming in, and I don't know if it was Amanda or one of our great people, and I listened, the power of listening, said, why don't we, at the nooncast, why don't we ask some of the presidential candidates to come into the kitchen with me and Amanda, the host, live on the set, and you know, cook their favorite meal. We'll find out ahead of time. We'll have the ingredients there. We'll go shopping there, and I'll never forget. I think it was oh, help me out, J-Dog. Oh, I'm just trying to think. It wasn't Bob Dole, but we had a national newsmaker in there, and of course Bob Dole had been injured in World War II, but his arm, but he was making chili. Or I remember Phil Graham from Texas. He ran and flamed out in the primary, but Senator Graham came in and made something. We had Steve Ford. I mean, we had people in there who was humanizing them, you know, which is void today in politics. We actually humanize them by talking about their favorite dish and what they like to cook. Then the Pam Smart. Pam Smart was just in the news. Was it yesterday, day before, J-Dog? The video trying to get a new evidence, you know, trying to get out of jail. Why don't they just put on the news site? Pamela Smart still trying to get out of jail for murdering her husband. I don't blame her. I wouldn't want to be in jail either, but I don't think she's going anywhere soon. But anyway, she was in the news, and I remember when that trial was going on. So we sat around and said, why don't we? Jim Breen was the great retired chief videographer for WMUR, the best of the best. Breen, he was just great. He really was. Good person. And he, I don't know, we got credentialed as the hometown network, so late Judge Douglas Gray or whoever made this decision allowed us to put a camera in the courtroom during the proceedings. So I said, we just sitting around. I go, why don't we just, or we just said sitting around, why don't we just broadcast this live during the day? We go to the programming people and the GM of the station at the time. I said, why don't we just broadcast the Pam Smart trial? I mean, I had no idea what we were doing, but that's the beauty of life sometimes. We just, you know, had a good idea and went with it. And the ratings went through the roof. The ratings at 11 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, people in offices and homes across the state were watching like court TV. And I'll get to that in a moment. And the Pam Smart case. And the ratings were higher than like a 2-foot snowstorm when the news was on at night, which used to be the highest ratings, by the way, a snowstorm. And it was like, you know, a 6 rating, 7 rating in the Boston market. Trust me, I don't mean to step on toes, but you know me, I'll step on toes once in a while. And I guarantee the current elders at WMUR TV would love to have a 6 or 7 rating in the Boston book. Ain't happening these days. They're about probably a third or fourth of that. But my point was the ratings went through the roof with the Pam Smart case. And one day I'm in the newsroom, and someone says you got a phone call, and it was the guy, J-Doc, who was founding at the time Court TV. And he says, I'm so-and-so, and I'm driving in New Jersey and New York City in a limo, and I might lose you in the tunnel. Like, I don't care if you're driving in a limo. Who the hell are you? And he goes, I heard you covered that Pam Smart case. We're thinking of starting a national network just covering murder cases on TV. How'd it work for you? I go, it worked great. Thank you. Good luck to you. Next thing I know, Court TV. So anyway, just some stories about the subjectivity of news, but all this comes around to a concluding point, believe it or not. And that is, we're always being made to be afraid of something. The hantavirus, the parasite outbreak. Even if there's legit health, that's not my point. I'm not minimizing the health concerns, but we're always being made to be afraid of something. Mosquitoes out of Costa Rica now, I read this morning, a travel alert because the mosquitoes. And I'm still waiting for the killer hornets. But see, what's that, J-Doc?
Rory O'Neill's going to talk about that at 11:10. Mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes. There you go. See, Rory's talking about it. And there's a reason why Rory's talking about it, because someone's making news with this. And that's how it goes. And the whole thing sometimes is a racket, folks. Just the fear factor. We're always being made to be afraid of something, be afraid of the virus. And that's what ticked me off during the whole COVID crap. CDC comes out and telling you, scaring the hell out of people, and they won't even tell you that people who are overweight with predisposed cardiac or diabetes and heart conditions were more likely to have a hard time getting rid of the virus. And I'm learning this, and I asked the CDC in an interview on my show live, why don't you tell people to lose weight and get in shape? And the guy wouldn't answer my questions. He just wanted you to take the booster of the vaccine. He wouldn't answer my questions. When I finally pressed him 3 times, he goes, sir, we can't do that. I said, why? You could save lives. Isn't that your job? And he goes, sir, well, we're being told by our managers that's body shaming. Body what? Body shaming. True story. Oh, my goodness. You can't make this stuff up. Some commentary, 603-228-2080. So we come back, an update from the VA next.
This is the Pulse of New. From the New England College Studios. Now, back to Jack on the Pulse of New Hampshire. All right. Always look forward to an update from our friends and great partners and sponsors, the VA for our state, Manchester VA. Kevin Forrest is the executive director, and he's now the executive director, and he's also joined by their primary care chief. And you hear me talking a lot on my show about Delphi Healthcare and getting a doctor and how I went there to get my doctor because I didn't have a primary care doctor and realized in October I needed one. And you'd be surprised the number of people that don't have their own primary care doctor these days. And it's counterintuitive to care because these big hospital care systems are closing down primary care practice. They should be opening them because that keeps you out of the emergency room in the hospital. And a veteran, Kevin Forrest, you recall from the Air Force, shared with us just how much he appreciated his physical with a primary care physician at your Tilton location because he had gone to another doctor a few weeks earlier and he got about 10 minutes with the doctor and he felt stressed and didn't even know if he got any questions answered. So Kevin Forrest joining us, primary care chief with him. Good morning, Mr. Kevin. Primary care, take it away.
Good morning, Jack. Thanks for having us on. And hey, I relayed that story of the Air Force veteran who came to Tilton, and let Dr. Fantis, our awesome primary care provider up there, know that, and she was appreciative. And that's all her veteran patients get that, and that's why she likes practicing at the VA. And so I have Dr. Rhiannon Golst with us here this morning. Dr. Golst has been with us for some years as a deputy chief of primary care, and he comes from a pretty extensive background in both the private sector as well as a couple different VAs throughout the country. And we recently promoted him to his awesome leadership experience to be our chief of primary care. And Jack, you said it. I mean, it's really the portal for everything healthcare. We have to do that right because it's, takes care of veterans and coordinates their care throughout the whole system. So I am proud to recognize Dr. Golst and introduce him to the veteran community. So I'll turn it over to you, Rand.
Thank you. Just always honored to be able to work as a primary care in the VA. And I think that kind of relationship and time that we're given as physicians is the greatest thing for us from a practice perspective. One of the most rewarding things is being able to spend time with veterans and to give back to those who've given so much to us. As both myself as a civilian who's had a long time and experience with veterans in my life. I come from a family where my grandmother was Dutch and was liberated by American GIs, and I grew up with that and grew up near a military base, Dobbins Air Force Base in Georgia. And so, being able to give back to a community that I've been around and had close ties with has been a wonderful experience.
What brought you to this, the VA?
So I came to the VA because after a few years in the civilian sector, I really wanted to dive into medicine that focused on the patient, and the VA really offered that to me as a primary care. And that was out in Oregon, where I worked as a frontline provider. I provided women's health care. I was able to do post-deployment work with veterans returning from the Iraq-Afghanistan wars, and that was just an incredibly rewarding experience to give back to them.
Yeah, and how do you find, when we were live over there, Kevin, for the it was our 250, you were celebrating 250, but trying to encourage enrollment and sort of an open house when we did the show. It was great information, but I really am impressed with the morale and the upbeat culture in the VA these days with a lot of the new folks there. Do you find that, Doctor? Do you find that as well when you're there? Do you like your colleagues? Do you feel upbeat and positive?
Yes, I feel really positive. I really like the primary cares I get to work with. We're recruiting wonderful people these days. We're really working hard to increase the number of primary cares we have available to our veterans. And we've really seen the last few years just more and more veterans and joining the VA here in New Hampshire. And that's an incredibly rewarding experience as well. They choose to come to us here.
Good stuff. And do you agree with what I said at the beginning, Doctor? I think primary care is critical for not just veterans but people, because so many people don't have a doctor, a primary care physician who's familiar with their records and history, and we've gotten away from that. And it used to be that way in the old days. The doctor knew the name of your dog, the family, your kids, and just to not be rushed. The modern day healthcare systems, these doctors are put on quotas, if you will, and they get about 10 minutes with the patient. They're staring at a laptop, and the patient may have 15 or 10 questions, and sometimes you're too nervous to even get them all in. And it takes more than sometimes 10 minutes to even relax in a doctor's office after they check your weight and blood pressure. So I think primary care is just absolutely key to preventative health and, to being healthier and having a doctor you can talk to and find out what's going on. Do you concur?
Thank you for saying that. I agree 100%. And what I love at the VA is the chance to do that. And, we're developing new tools. Like now we have ambient AI, so that as providers, we can let the computer do the work of taking notes and actually get to really look at and pay attention to our patients in the room. And just one more thing that the VA gives that I don't always get when I'm working in the commercial sector.
I love it. Kevin, is this an area you're seeing good results in? That to get people getting a thorough, non-rushed physical and an exam.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you hear the story like up in Tilton there, and that's exactly, why we want folks to come in. I mean, I count on Dr. Golst and, the awesome team of healthcare providers here to provide that care and experience. I look at it as my job. I mean, hey, let's face it, Jack, we're the federal government. We got plenty of bureaucracy around here. What can I do to break the bureaucracy that can, kind of drive everybody bananas at some time? And so, I think that's my commitment to Dr. Golst and everybody else is to let me take care of that stuff so you can take better care of patients and spend more time with them.
Well, I like it. All right. What's anything coming up? Anything? I'm actually getting a veteran in Augusta, Maine, or someone who's listening, a doctor, I apologize, in Augusta, Maine, liking this. So that's pretty cool. As we have more stations up in Maine, he's talking about the importance of a physical, found something with him when he was in the hospital for one thing and the doctor was able to find something else. So he's appreciating this. Anything coming up, Kevin, or a final word from your doctor?
Well, definitely the final word, just going back to my bureaucracy piece here. But so I know one of the biggest challenges that veterans, voice to us is, trying to get through on the phone system and get to, whoever you need to talk to, whether it's your primary care team or many of the other programs here in the facility. And so, Dr. Golst is committed to, continuing to work through that with our call center and everything else. But I want, all the listeners to know, we also have our updated patient guide, which will be out on our homepage. And in that guide is a list of phone numbers to get directly through to a number of the programs and clinics and specific call centers here. And so, I want folks to know that we physically went by ourselves and called those numbers to make sure that that things weren't getting routed to the wrong place, and I want people to know that because hey, if you want to coordinate your care, you got to be able to reach the folks that you're trying to get a hold of.
You'll love this, Kevin, and your doctor. The doctor in Maine says confidentially, he's a surgeon, but he goes, the PCP here sees 35 patients in an 8-hour day. 35 patients in an 8-hour day. Usually spends about 5 to 10 minutes with each.
Well, we're not built like that. I know Dr. Golst is,
thank you.
I mean, we certainly see our.
We got to run.
But awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right, coming up, we're going to talk some veterans updates next.